Well, good morning. I think we'll start. It looks like it's settled down in the switch. I'm happy to see this many being across from Kenny Miller. I'm really pleased that you come in. And this is you got the maiden voyage on me presenting at a meeting. My name's Keith Bartholomay, and I've been involved in the coalition for a number of years. I'm the second chairman of this organization. And when I retired, they started doing all these great things. So I'm a firm believer in retirement, and I'm getting close to that age right now. See if we make this work. Our operation is in southeast North Dakota and northeastern Ransom County, southwestern Cass County. So I'm in Imperial Cass, although I don't think Cass County realizes that past Highway 18, which runs through Castleton, that there is a Cass County and a North Dakota west of there, but there is. Up until a year ago, I was farming and ranching with my brother Kent, and he had a son Ethan on our operation, and I have a son Carl. A year ago, we split up, and my son Carl and I took over the cattle end of the operation. They're going to do the farming, and they do all the farming for us. So I'm really excited about this. I haven't been in a tractor in the grain cart or drove a truck all fall, and I'm just loving it. I mean, moving cows, working cattle, and that's what I worked all my years for, sitting in them cabs to do this. Next one. I'm going to talk about what we've been doing I talk about extending the winter season. My goal, and I've almost made it a couple of years, is to graze 360 days a year in northeastern North Dakota and southeastern North Dakota. If any of you have been to Fargo, you know that we have every bit as bad a weather as most of Canada. When you watch the thermal lines, they come across the North Dakota border, and then they dive way down into South Dakota on that Red River Valley. We're right on the edge of the Red River Valley, and we get winter. We get quite a bit of snow some years. We get cold almost all the time, and it's a tough area. For us, we've been extending it and getting into these. September, my dad did it. Grazing corn stalks, crop the aftermath of wheat. In the past, it was wheat and then corn stalks, and he did it. He'd usually get into January a lot of times. We might have to feed a little hay in tougher years, but they were 10 miles away from home, and we'd haul some small squares in the back of the pickup through the snowdrifts and get there, and then right after Christmas, when he had some help, then we'd run down there and chase him home. So we've been doing it a lot of years. We've refined it a lot. We do it a lot more now. Dad had 150 cows. We run around 250 to 300 cows, 325 when we've got the replacement heifers and the bulls and everything. And we'll be out on the fields the whole time. We have about 800 acres of cropland, and we run about 1,200 acres of pasture, some native tallgrass prairie and some introduced species. We have one small permit on the Cheyenne National Grassland, so I keep my hand in the government. We put this shed up in 1996 or 8, I think, I believe. And this is my peace of mind of what makes winter grazing on crop aftermath go in my mind. Animal welfare is our number one concern, and I don't want to ever get stuck where my cows are out and I gotta wait for the truck to come. I've had a couple of springs where we've been waiting for the truck to come and feed, and the roads are bad and they can't get there, and I'm worried about it. With the variability, we will go from 200 bales of hay to 1,500 to 2,000 bales of hay in a winter, and that's happened in the last 10 years. We've used 2,000 and we've used 50. So this allows me to store hay. The stuff in the middle of the hay shed there, this stuff is about 5 or 6 years old. One of these years I got to get down into there. We almost got there last year because we were sending hay out to a neighbor of Trish's out in Beach that needed it really bad, and we sold, and we got down there quite a bit. to the point where I was even a little worried for this year, last year, but thank God it was a nice open winter and we grazed. We were on corn stalks and used probably 200 bales of alfalfa hay to 300 head all year. So we've used about 600 bales of hay equivalent in the last 3 years. We've had 3 nice, pretty open winters. A little bit of snow, but nothing bad. We had a little ice, but nothing bad. But so we've gotten it down to about 200 bales a year, less when the weather's been good. In the last 3 years, we've averaged about 1 bale a day, or 1 bale per head per year on alfalfa, on bale hay. We always, our planning for grazing starts in, I'll be starting in March to figure out, I always want to have a wheat field with the corn field. For corn stalks, I always like to have a little wheat, and then I can put my cover crop on the wheat, and they got a little diversity. If I don't have a wheat field next to the corn, then we'll have some pasture that they can go in or fence rows or shelter belts. We're blessed in our area with lots of big shelter belts and some river bottoms and stuff like that. This is up in our north unit, up in the river bottoms. But we've always planned the farming, but planned on using every acre of land for grazing too. And it's a wonderful synergy to use in the agriculture, the farm fields with the cattle. And we've done that for years, and I don't know if they seem to go on the cover crops first, but it balances the nutrition real well, and we get by with less supplemental feed that way. When we're planning for animal nutrition, protection from the elements, water, and then how accessible it is. Accessible, I mean, can I get a tractor there? If we get a 2-foot blizzard, can I get a tractor there to feed them for a couple of days before I can get home? Some areas of our place, we can't. I mean, this is our south unit where I live, and then about 10 miles north, we have another 2,000 acres up there of mixed pasture land and cropland. So it's 2 separate units, kind of. When the weather gets bad, I want to have the stuff up north. I want them all cows not when it gets bad, but when there's a more likelihood, like in January, February, when a lot of our big blizzards come. I know we can get them in November, but I want to have them down in this unit. We'll chase them or haul them down into this unit here. These are sections of land. The ones outlined in yellow are land where we own or rent and stuff. This is my headquarters, and my son's headquarters are right there. I guess this is just an example of what we planned. The cows are on there. I just took this picture. I convinced my brother we'd planted this field. We'd planted. It's kind of in the middle of our pastures down in the south end, and we planted 85-day corn first. We'll plant 100-day corn, but this we planted first. We planted 85-day corn, planning hopefully to get on there on the 1st of October, and we made it. This corn was combined on the 15th of September, and then with my grazing program, I've left this. You can see the tall grass prairie. This is my one of my projects here, the tall grass prairie, but we're in there using the fall grazing to eliminate Kentucky bluegrass, and then so they can go in there, and then they'll come in the corn stalks, and then I got the soybean field that's harvested right next to it, and they do pick soybeans too. This is some other of my planting. This is the wheat field planted to cover crops with the corn field that will be combined there. This will probably be spring, and this is where we'll probably be calving. We'll probably use this and bring them in there probably the 20th of April or something. This has got triticale, oats, and turnips and radishes and kale, I think is what's planted in this. This is looking the other way. This same spot looking the other way. We've got my protection with a good shelter belt. And then we got sunflowers on this, it's 240 acres in this. And we'll probably run one fence through the middle of it to kind of keep them on fresh feed all the time. Planting dates on cover crops, that's very important. And this year was kind of one of our worst years, but this is stuff that was planted. This was a oats and pea field that I planted a double crop, but we've spread manure. We have a hoop barn that we finish our cattle, we background, and then we'll finish our own steers. And the plan was to haul the manure on about the 1st of July after the oats and peas were harvested, and then get the cover crops growing. And it didn't quite work out. We got rain, and we couldn't get out here. But like Donnie said, nothing goes the same 2 years in a row. But this was planted on the 10th of July. This is looking straight down and looking across. You can see a cornfield that's combined in the back to be together. This was planted 1st of August. Still not too bad. This was after just straight wheat, combined wheat, 60 bushel an acre wheat, and then planted this. The replacement heifers will go out here next pretty soon, shortly. This was planted the 20th of August. Still got fair use. This was planted the 15th of September after silage corn. Not much there. That will be a spring grazing to keep the cows happy while we're calving. And that should grow. Hopefully the spring is good. Some years we can get on there April 15th. Some years, last year was April 5th or May 15th, and then still didn't have much. Well, that was just going to be triticale because it was so low. I've tried, I'm trying to think of the name of the batch anyway, hairy batch. I've tried hairy batch, never been able to overwinter it. I mean, I suppose there's winters that will, but being it was an equip contract, I had to put 3 things, so I put radishes and turnips and kale, but it's there, but there's nothing. It'll never amount to anything. And they'll talk, you'll hear some of the soil health people, and maybe they're right, maybe that is enough for us to do some good if you're going to plant a crop on it, but I would never spend the money if I was going to try for fall grazing or even spring grazing and rip it up the 1st of April to plant a crop on it. I wouldn't, this isn't going to blow anyway. We're on a very sandy soil, very sandy, loamy sands to fine sand soils in most of this country. Fencing. Some of our areas have permanent fence, but most all of our are not. There's no fence. We use polywire. I mean, I've heard that we went from using barbed wire to using the small metal electric fence wire, a little bit heavier stuff. Dad did all that stuff, but that was all, boy, that was a lot of work to put up a half a mile. We use polywire. We step in. My boy likes the rebar, although I don't pay for rebar, it's a little cheaper than that, and T-posts. We have right now, I think I added it up the other day, we got about 17 miles of posts out that we put out this time of year wherever we can get them out. And we have about 5 or 6 miles of polywire that we put out. And then we'll move the polywire, but I want the posts in before it freezes if we can keep it out of the way from the combine. As soon as they get it combined, or if we got a ditch or something to put in, but we use polywire, and my boy can put that up around the quarter section, which is a mile of polywire. He can put that up in an hour, and we take it up just about as fast, 4-wheeler, and he's got a little fencing trailer with 2 spools in the back, and away he goes. The other infrastructure is water, and it's a big thing. Some of our headquarters we have water, but most of the time we're chopping ice. Whether it's on a river, this is on the river, and water quality people in here, they might not like this, but we do get a little bit of manure right on there, but most of it's out in the field. It's not sitting in a feedlot that's going to be running into the water. So on the river, or we have a high water table on a lot, or and where we don't, we have dugouts, and we chop ice. We chop ice 2 or 3 different places all winter long. And sometimes the ice gets about that thick. We use a chainsaw to cut it out, but then we chop, and even when it's 20, 25 below, it never gets more than 2, 3 inches in a day, especially when you got 200 head drinking out of there. It's usually not too big a job, although it's something you got to do every morning, but it's a lot cheaper and faster than starting a tractor. I guess I'm going into challenges. Well, I wanted to say that stocking rates on when we're planting, you'll see some of the stuff on the, let me make sure I ain't done. On stocking rate, they'll tell you that 200 bushel corn, you should be able to get two cows for a month on an acre of ground. We don't stock that heavy. I plan on corn. I plan on 2, and we got a lot of corn acres, so it doesn't matter for me. I plan on 2 acres per AUM, or what does that convert to? Can't read, it's too dark in here. But well, 15 cow days an acre is what I plan on. You could probably comfortably get 30 cow days an acre, but when you start pushing that, then you're probably going to want to, depending on the weather. In the fall, you'll get by with 2 acres per cow month, but as you get colder and the snow gets a little deeper and you get a little ice, you're going to have to give them fresh fields. We move them to different quarters, constantly, about every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the winter, especially when we get into February and March. We're moving every week or so. We're going to giving them fresh food, wanting them to have a little better nutrition. But some of the challenges we have, the number one is ice. This was, I believe, in 2016, we got an ice storm down through there. This was a challenge. We got through this. I had good tall cover crop that year. We had good growth, and I had a lot of corn, but this was one they'd been in for a while. You can see that they would have starved to death out here really fast. This was iced up really bad. Sometimes you're done. That ice is our number one reason we're done. Cold weather and snow doesn't affect us near as much until the snow gets over your knee, and they got to dig harder to get the amount of a bite of. How much work do they have to do to get a bite of food? And that's my rule of thumb. If they got to work pretty hard to get a bite of food, then when it's 20 below, they can't get enough food. That's the number one criteria. Second biggest problem is deer on our polywire. And as we go, you'll notice back in this, there's several deer at times in the hunting season. The first day of hunting season, you better get around all your fences really quick. The day after, the first 5 days of deer hunting season, then deer seem like they're moving to new areas. They don't know where the polywire is, and sometimes it gets ripped up. After the local deer, we don't have that much trouble. We're checking fences obviously, but they get out in December or November. Usually the crops are all off, and we don't have to worry about the neighbors quite so bad. And we're not on a major highway at all, anywhere where we graze. We do supplement, especially when we get into the last trimester. When I won't supplement hardly at all, because we usually have cover crop and stuff, but tubs are one way. We usually have lots of alfalfa hay, so that's a little cheaper for me than buying the protein, but I have used tubs quite a bit. They're handy, they're fast, and if we got 5 miles to get the tractor to a field, we'll dump some tubs out there. Forget what this is another member. That's a hay bale. I've been using the rings, and I make sure that I'll take my alfalfa hay that's probably first cutting, probably got a couple reins on, but it's still 15, 16, 17% protein. And this is in December or something. If I have real high quality alfalfa that I'm supplementing with, then I'll roll that out so that all the timid cows get some too. I kind of watch the cows. This was out here. This was on that same ice storm here. They're on cover crop here. Doesn't look like there's much there, but there's all the turnips and radishes were flat on the ground. And I'll show you some pictures later. They're digging that bale there was lasting. So 1,200-pound bale was lasting probably. I think every 5 days we were putting one bale out, and there was about 80 head in this bunch up in that. This is 10 miles away from the home place, or my home place where I'm at, by my brother's. One thing we've learned when we started this, and then as we pushed harder and harder and raised into February and March, cow type is pretty important. The great big 1,800 pounds Simmental crosses won't work in this system. We're pretty much, I think every breed has types that will work, but you got to know the breed. This is what I like. I don't know, I'm not scientific, I'm not an animal scientist, but I like good depth, good rip. This is an old cow too. She's 12 years old, I believe. This was taken in February after that ice storm. She's doing good. We're getting there. We still got a few that don't, and there's a few that get pretty skinny and they don't have a calf, they're gone. But I don't starve them, but then we do sort off our cripples, our really old cows, our bred heifers, and our replacement heifers. They run in a different bunch, and they get better cover crop, and they get supplemented a lot quicker than this bunch do. But your cows, I mean, it took 5 years to start developing and get half of them to be out grazing instead of sitting in the corner waiting. And I think some of the bale grazing would help. And it's taken 20 years now. My cows, even when the neighbor's tractor goes by, they don't come to the fence. They know that ain't for them. They don't get fed unless it's really desperate. And I feel for my cows. I mean, there's some days I think, geez, I got to get out there, but I always I got to get out there and feed them something. It's just nasty. It's 20 below and the wind is blowing and it's just terrible. And I'll drive by with a pickup and I'll see them all scattered out. And there's head down in the snow and they're working and they're happy. So then I do away with the itch to go feed them because I hate to sit in the tractor anyway. Well, just a side note, this is a game, fish and game, Hamilton Wells Game Management Area, and they plant corn, cost share with somebody, and this is for winter feed. This is up by our north unit. There's no tracks even in the cornfield at all. This is a quarter mile away. This is my cover crops. I contacted the manager, and I used to play softball with him up there, and he says, "You guys got to get out of the corn and get into the turnips." This was a critical year. I was running short of feed, and I was feeding. We counted about 300 to 400 deer on this field, and that was my last one I was going to after it iced up, and about a quarter mile away. So it wasn't. They don't standing corn. They might be a little bit, but they need to plant cover crops or alfalfa or something like that. This is how it's iced in. You notice that, but there's still plenty of feed that they can get there. There's turnips and radishes, leaves, and I wouldn't move them just yet on that. This is kind of, I don't know for sure, but they tell us when they're that loose. This was taken in the end of January, grazing cover crops. They tell us that the loose, it should be high protein. The nut ball that we did 10, 15 years ago, that nut ball was a program that the NRCS cost shared that it's a nutrition balancer on grazing. And that told us that we were having plenty of protein. The manure tells us we're plenty of protein, and the cow condition tells us we got enough protein out there in the end of January. Everybody says, well, it gets brown, it's not going to have it. That tells me there's enough out there yet of protein. whether that's good. I put this slide in just to kind of show you. We moved off of this field in this fall. I don't see, when it's time to move corn stalks, I don't see any husks. Well, that's the other thing, we do not use a chopping corn head. If you can find a farmer that doesn't use a chopping corn head, if you're gonna rent them, that's very important. And chopping corn heads, most of your leaves and your husks blow away. And you're left with the stalks and the heavier leaves, and they can't find that stuff. But when you get done combining, there'll be husks sticking on a lot of these. When there's only one or two that you see on top, I think it's time to move them. I think nutritionally it's time to move them. You'll see a lot of leaf material down here, and you can force them to eat it, but their nutrition plane is going down rapidly after the corn husks are gone because they like them the best. This is the bale grazing, and not bale grazing, swath grazing, and that used to be the big thing, probably 20 years ago. Swath grazing, now bale grazing is the big thing, but I still like swath grazing if I can. In some years, there's a prevent plant, especially in the eastern North Dakota, it's used a lot where it's too wet to plant. We can get on there the 1st of July or something, we'll put something on, and then a lot of times and I'll even do it after wheat. Some years I can get enough growth up. But if I can lay down this will give me that bridge that between the middle of March until the rye greens up in April. It'll give me some place that I can graze, and that's the secret of getting that last of the 365 days. I can get 330 days, 300 days real easy, but that last 30 days is my problem. And swath grazing is the thing, but I can't quite put the economics to it to make it pay to do this on good farmland, of swath grazing on good farmland, unless the prevent plant payment has already been there. And that makes this economically very viable. I mean, but that year I grazed for 360, but there was a month in there in late February, early March when we got some warm weather. It melted the snow down to maybe 4 inches or 3 inches, and it just got so tough that I fed pretty hard for a month in there until the temperature warmed up, the snow softened up, and the weather was warmer, and then the cows were fine on corn stalks and cover crops again. So I didn't make it 365 days that year, but I made 335, I think, without any supplemental, just a little bit of tubs. The best reason to winter graze is this is out of my pickup window. This is not a tractor, but there's a deer grazing with the cows, wild turkeys, cows in the background. Contented cows, look at that cow. I mean, this is 20 below. There's no wind and the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day, but that cow's got some hanging out. These are grazing. That one's just happier than happy. I've had neighbors say you got to feed them when it's cold. They're abused. I'm abusing my animals. I don't think so. I think they're abusing their animals, being on manure pack and locked up in a pen. That was one day that the picture kind of says it all. It's probably not professional quality, but I snapped it with computers. It's wonderful, and that was a fun day, and that's in February 2016. I guess that's the end of my talk. This is the new season. This is our summer, one of my summer seeded back to pastures, and it's a new talk. So I'll take questions. Any questions or comments? I know I didn't cover it all, and I had more stuff in my notes. But
how are you powering all your equipment?
We use batteries. We go through. I just went to about $350 a seconds deep cycle batteries. we've got 12 fences that we'll use. Yeah, so we use batteries. I went to Speedrite 1,000 fencers. We'll probably have a couple of, almost everywhere we go, we'll have a half a mile, a quarter mile. One side will be a pasture, and then I got a fence around the other side. Very seldom I have to fence around. And I'll use them on polywire. It doesn't do with a darn. But in the wintertime, our cows are so used to polywire that, I mean, there's hardly any time they won't even walk across it. So we don't have cows out very much. Maybe once every other winter, but we'll have cows out sometimes. But I'll put up stronger fence if there's neighbors crops that ain't out yet, and I try to graze where it's my crop, or we got good fences early in the year when all the crop is still out on the landscape. They used to have a lot of neighbors that had cows. Now I have none. So almost everywhere there's no cows. So when our cows get out and they damage crop, I got to pay. Before theirs used to get out and get in ours. That didn't matter so much because then ours would get out in theirs. But now when they get out, it's bad.
If you go back to like those fields with cover crops that have iced over, do you ever go back to them after the ice has come off?
I don't have to go back because I've got enough acres. But yeah, and that was one of my points. I think it's in here someplace, but I can't see this at night. But so some years we've gotten deep snow in November, you know, and it's that deep, and maybe it'll melt down a little bit. Then we get another 6 inches, and we're over the knees. We're pretty much done grazing in November. I've been 15th of November. There's been some years when I had to start hauling feed, so I got a plan for that. I mean, there's no way I could go out and find that kind of hay on 350 head, that kind of volume, if I didn't have a year. I want to have a year's storage of hay, and we've used it up a couple of years. But a lot of them years they'll break and it'll get warm, say in the middle of March, and then our cows will go right back out again. I mean, we got them out there anyway, but then we put up polywire and went out a half mile from home. We got water, it's starting to melt, and we can get through. So yeah, we'll go back if we have to. And then we got rye fields always planned for hopefully by the 15th of April, sometimes the 15th of May, but 1st of May, almost always we get 3/4 speed out of that, well, triticale, I like triticale over rye.
As it gets warm in the spring and the ground starts to open up, do you pull the cattle off, or are you concerned with compaction at all? Or we have guys that are just strictly crop guys that have corn stalks, but they aren't willing to let you put cattle on because they say it's going to compact. But if they've got 2,000 bushel grain carts, and
yeah, you know, there's that study out in Nebraska. It's hard to convince a farmer of that. My brother is a farmer. I mean, he's pure and simple. The only reason he likes cattle is because he got to share in the check. But the crops are his #1 deal. No, but that, I mean, now of course, we got sand, a lot of sand, but we run them on the heavy. We got some river bottom ground that's heavy clays on silts that compact pretty hard. We've never seen it. I mean, and no-till will have that trail, you know, that they're trailing the water, or they're trailing to the supplemental feed, and that'll be thinner. There'll be compaction there, but what do you lose on a trail that wide, a half a mile long? I mean, it's 10 plants or something. Actually, in our sand, a lot of people will go out because it's so wet. We got a high water table, so a lot of people go out there with a light disc and just crack it open so it dries out. Well, our cows do that wonderfully in the spring. I mean, they put holes in it like that, and I mean it makes that soil mellow in the low wetland type, or not wetland, the low spots. So no, we've never seen it. Sometimes when they get the deep ones, you know, then you might want to run over it with a sulfur or a vertical tillage one just to level it off a little bit because it gets kind of rough. We've never seen any crop damage from it. And that one, of course, in Nebraska, I think that was a sandier. A lot of that was sandier soil, and that's affected, sure, with that study. But that just came out here about a year ago and kind of confirmed what we've been seeing for 30 years. I guess I'm done early, but maybe does it. Thank you.